She kept apologizing, over and over. "I'm sorry, Jason. I didn't want to be the one to tell you. I didn't. I didn't know who else would." Lauren sat across from me at a quiet booth in the back of some bar I never would have chosen. Her hands shook around her glass. Her eyes were red. She hadn't touched her drink. I had. I was on my second. She leaned in, voice barely above a whisper. "She's seeing someone else. Has been for a while." I don't remember what I said right after. I think I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the world tilted sideways and my brain had to grab onto something. Laughing felt safer than throwing up. She looked at me like she wished she'd stayed silent, like I was a wounded animal and she had just delivered the final blow. I told her to stop, she said. I begged her to. But she said she didn't care anymore. That broke something in me I didn't know could break. I'm Jason, 34. I work maintenance for a property management company, fixing things, replacing pipes, keeping old buildings from falling apart. My marriage, though? I didn't realize that one was already crumbling. My wife's name is Alyssa, 33. She's a freelance designer, mostly logos and web ads. Works from home. Smart, funny, charismatic in a way I'll never be. People are drawn to her. Always have been. We've been together for 7 years. Married 5. Our house isn't big, but it's ours. Mornings are filled with coffee and muted conversations. Evenings with quiet dinners and bad TV we both pretend to enjoy. She likes her eggs soft. I leave dishes in the sink too long. We're not perfect, but I thought we were good. Until Lauren, her best friend since middle school, the kind of friend who shows up in every vacation photo, sat me down and told me my wife had stopped being mine months ago. There was a man, Travis, some personal trainer from her gym. The gym she'd suddenly started going to religiously. The gym she said helped her clear her head. I'd encouraged it. I thought maybe she was just getting healthy. I thought maybe she was coming back to herself. Turns out, she was just getting further away from me. Lauren didn't want to tell me. I believed that. She kept saying Alyssa was different now. Distant, cold. She didn't recognize her anymore. I told her I didn't either. And that was the scariest part. I went home that night and stared at the back of Alyssa's head while she curled up on the couch. She was laughing at something on her phone, probably a meme, maybe a message from him. I stood in the hallway, watching her smile at a world I wasn't part of anymore. And she didn't even know that I knew. She kissed me goodnight. Not on the lips, just a soft press of her mouth to my cheek. Familiar. Routine. The kind of kiss you give someone you're used to falling asleep beside. But now I knew better. That kiss wasn't love. It was camouflage. She turned off the lamp on her side of the bed, pulled the blanket over her shoulder, and fell asleep within minutes. I could tell by the rhythm of her breathing, slow, steady, peaceful, like someone with nothing on their conscience. I lay there wide awake, eyes on the ceiling, heart burning in my chest like a live wire had been threaded through it. She didn't know. She didn't know that Lauren had told me everything, that I'd sat across from her best friend in a dim bar and heard her say words no man should ever have to hear about his wife, that the woman I build a life with, whose laugh I could recognize in a crowd, whose favorite mug I always rinsed by hand because she swore the dishwasher dulled the print, had been giving parts of herself to someone else for months. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't move. I just watched the ceiling slowly fade from shadow to gray as morning came, and wondered how many other nights I'd laid beside her while she was thinking of him. In the morning, she made coffee, just like always. She wore one of my t-shirts, the navy blue one that always hung a little too long on her. She looked tired, but not troubled. She handed me a mug, kissed my temple, and said, "You okay? You seem off." I looked at her and saw everything I didn't know I'd lost. "I'm fine," I said. She smiled, and I hated how easy it was for her to believe me. That day at work was a blur. I fixed a leaky sink, changed out a broken thermostat, pretended to listen while one of the tenants ranted about the parking situation. But my mind was stuck in one place, playing back every moment from the past few months with new eyes. The gym clothes she never used to wear, the extra showers, the quiet texting in the corner of the couch while claiming to scroll recipes, the way she started sleeping with her phone under her pillow. It had all been there, right in front of me. But I trusted her. God, I trusted her. I remember coming home one night, exhausted, only to find her already asleep with the TV still playing. I slipped into bed quietly, trying not to wake her, kissed the back of her shoulder, and whispered, "I love you." She didn't stir. Now I wonder if she even heard it, or if she was dreaming of someone else. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because I wasn't ready to hear the lies. Not when I already had the truth. I needed time. I needed to see how she moved now that I knew. If anything about her would shift. If guilt would show up in her eyes when she looked at me. If hesitation would creep into her smile. But there was nothing. Just Alyssa, humming in the kitchen, planning our weekend like our life hadn't quietly caught fire. She kissed me goodbye that afternoon before I headed back out. Same lips. Different woman. I didn't ask her anything that week. Didn't accuse. Didn't hint. I just watched. Quietly. Closely. Like a man who's already seen the future but is still walking through the past. I needed to see it myself. Not just believe Lauren. Not just sit with what she told me. I had to see the gap between Alyssa's smile and the truth underneath it. I started noticing things I never would have thought twice about before. The way she dressed for the gym now, always a little too polished for a workout. Always the same two specific bras, the same leggings I never saw in the laundry basket. She was careful. Too careful. She never left her phone out anymore. She used to fall asleep with it on the nightstand, buzzing with notifications from Etsy, Pinterest, random group chats. Now it was silent, face down, always locked. She'd started going to the gym at odd times. Said it was less crowded. I didn't question it out loud. But I started checking the clock, timing how long she was gone. 1 hour. Sometimes 90 minutes. Never less. She came back smiling, flushed, but not tired the way people are after cardio. Just pleased. Relaxed in a way that had nothing to do with treadmills. One night I checked the car mileage before she left. Then again when she came home. 2 extra miles. Not a detour, but not direct either. Enough to mean something. She said traffic had slowed her down. I nodded and said I hoped she wasn't too sore. She smiled and said it was worth it. And that smile made my skin crawl. Saturday afternoon, she told me she was meeting Lauren for lunch. I didn't react. Just said cool, have fun. She picked a white blouse from the back of her closet, one I hadn't seen in over a year. She wore the necklace I bought her on our 2nd anniversary, the one she usually said was too delicate to wear out. She sprayed perfume. Not the vanilla stuff she wore to work around clients. Something sharper. Floral. She never wore that one for me. I asked if she needed money, a dumb question, just something to make it sound normal. She kissed my cheek and said she was good. Then she left. I waited 10 minutes. Then I grabbed my keys and followed. I wasn't even subtle. I stayed far back, but not out of fear. It didn't feel like spying. It felt like confirmation. Like I was just trying to match what I already knew with what I could prove. She didn't drive to the cafe where she usually met Lauren. She didn't go anywhere near that side of town. She went to a small lot behind a 24-hour gym on the other side of the freeway. His car was already there. I recognized it from a photo Lauren had shown me on her phone, black SUV, tinted windows, license plate slightly crooked. I parked 2 rows back. Watched her walk to his door like it was muscle memory. He stepped out, kissed her. Not a quick kiss. Not something friends do. She laughed. She looked happy. She looked free. And I sat there in my truck, fist on the wheel, jaw clenched so tight I couldn't feel my teeth. I didn't move. I didn't cry. I didn't even get angry the way you're supposed to. I just watched them disappear through the side door of that gym like I was watching a life I didn't belong to anymore. When I got home, she was already there. She'd showered. Her hair was damp. She smiled, said lunch was good. Lauren was stressed. They talked a lot. I asked what they ate. She said salads. I asked if she wanted to watch something that night. She said maybe later. She had work to finish. I nodded. I sat on the couch for hours after that, staring at a blank screen, wondering how many lies one person could tell in a day and still sleep through the night. The worst part wasn't what she did. It was watching her live like she hadn't done it, like her life was still intact, like I was still hers and she was still mine. She made dinner that Sunday night, pasta with garlic bread, one of the few things she always nailed. She poured wine, sat across from me like nothing had changed, told me about a new client who wanted a logo by Friday. I nodded along, pretended to care. She asked if I'd fixed the leak under the bathroom sink at that downtown condo. I said yeah. She smiled. I stared at her hands. They were shaking. Barely, but enough. She wasn't a good liar. I think that's what made this worse. I could see it on her. The hesitation. The pauses when she talked. The way she touched her hair more than usual, or blinked too fast. She wasn't practiced. She wasn't cold. She was messy, nervous, human. and that made it harder to hate her. But I was still going to break her with it. The next morning, I made breakfast like I always did. Coffee, toast, nothing special. She came into the kitchen wearing that oversized hoodie I gave her last Christmas, the one she said made her feel small and safe. I wanted to rip it off her back. Instead, I kissed her forehead, handed her a mug, and said, "Hey, you ever think about doing couples therapy?" She froze for half a second. It was quick, but I saw it. A flicker of guilt. Then she covered it, laughed softly, said, "Why? Are we broken?" I shrugged. "I don't know. Might be good. Just to reconnect." She sipped her coffee and didn't say much after that. But she kept glancing at me, like she was trying to figure out if I knew something. I wanted her to feel that. I wanted her to wonder every second if I'd seen something, heard something, found something. I wanted her to walk through our house like it was wired with traps, like every corner held a secret I was about to drop in her lap. I wanted her to lie to my face while knowing that I knew she was lying. I started watching her like I was studying a suspect. The way she moved, the time she left for errands, the way she typed with her thumbs low, holding her phone close to her chest. She started going to bed later, said she was having trouble sleeping. I knew she was texting him, probably waiting until I was fully out before she responded, probably crafting those careful little messages that made her feel alive. Meanwhile, I was lying awake 5 feet away, listening to the tiny taps of her fingertips and picturing every word she didn't send to me. I stopped talking much that week, just enough to keep the rhythm of our life from feeling off. I'd ask about groceries, bills, her projects. She'd give short answers. I started to notice the way her face looked after she read a message. The way her lips would twitch like a smile was trying to form, and then she'd kill it before it reached her eyes. That kind of discipline only comes from guilt. On Thursday, I got home early and saw her through the window before I opened the door. She was standing by the kitchen counter, phone in her hand, staring at the screen like it was oxygen. She didn't hear me walk in, didn't hear me close the door, just stood there smiling at something. When she finally noticed me, she jumped like she'd been caught with blood on her hands. Said she was checking an email. I said nothing. I walked over, kissed her cheek, and whispered, "Love you." She said it back, but her voice cracked. I stood behind her while she stirred something on the stove, and all I could think about was how long she thought she could keep this going. How long she thought I'd just keep fixing toilets and paying bills while she slipped out through back doors and gym exits. She thought she was still in control, but I was the one setting the stage now. I stopped being a husband that week and started being something else. A mirror, a test, a quiet weight pressing down on her until she cracked under it. I wanted her to feel it, not just the guilt, but the risk. The feeling that her little secret life was walking on a glass floor, and I was standing just below it with a hammer. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just let the silence stretch longer between us. Let her fill it with her own imagination. She got jumpy. Started asking me more questions than usual. "You okay? You seem distant. Is something wrong at work?" I kept my answer short, calm. I wanted her guessing. I wanted her wondering what I'd seen. If maybe she left something open, if maybe someone had said something, if maybe I'd checked her phone while she was in the shower. I hadn't. Didn't need to. She was unraveling on her own. She stayed off her phone more when I was in the room. Not out of respect, out of fear. She started bringing it to the bathroom, to the laundry room. Once she left it charging in the living room, and I saw her glance at it a dozen times in 5 minutes like it was a bomb about to go off. The notifications were muted, but the guilt wasn't. I started keeping track of her lies. Not for revenge, just so I could see how much she was willing to say to my face. She told me Lauren had invited her to a movie. I texted Lauren 5 minutes later. She replied, "Haven't seen Alyssa in weeks." She told me she was doing a Zoom call with a client. I walked past the office an hour later and heard music playing. No talking. No call. I made dinner that Friday. Something simple. Just wanted to see how she'd sit across from me with a plate of food and pretend she wasn't somewhere else inside her head. She barely touched it. Said she wasn't hungry. Said she had a headache. Said she might lie down early. I nodded. Said nothing. Later that night, I heard her crying in the shower. Not loud. Just soft enough that she probably thought I couldn't hear it over the water. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, wondering if those were tears for what she did to me, or for the fear that she might finally lose the safety net she'd been cheating on. She came out wrapped in a towel, eyes red. She looked at me, then away, like she couldn't decide if I knew or if she was imagining it. She asked if I wanted to watch something. I said I was tired. She nodded. I watched her walk to the other side of the bed. She hesitated before turning off her light, like she was waiting for me to say something to ask her outright. But I didn't. Not yet. Because I wasn't finished watching her squirm. She thought she was ahead, thought I was still in the dark. But every step she took was one I was letting her take. I wanted her to look over her shoulder. And now, finally, she was. By Saturday, I couldn't just sit with it anymore. I didn't want confrontation, not yet. But I needed her to feel something sharper. Guilt wasn't enough. I wanted fear. Doubt. I wanted to shake her version of reality the same way she'd shattered mine. So I started leaving little things undone. I left the back door cracked when I went out for groceries, something I'd never do. When she asked about it, I just shrugged and said, "Thought you might have opened it." She paused like she wasn't sure if I meant something by it. That's all I needed. One seed of uncertainty. I turned off the Find My Phone sharing setting on my end. Not hers, mine. She noticed a day later and asked why she couldn't see where I was. I smiled and said, "Figured you didn't need to check in on me." She didn't ask again. I started going quiet when she came into the room. Just sitting there, staring at nothing. Not like I was mad, just distant. Heavy. The kind of quiet that wraps around you like smoke. She couldn't handle it. She kept trying to fill it. Small talk. Jokes. Touches on the arm that felt like obligations. She was trying to get a read on me, but I wasn't giving her anything. And that scared her more than shouting ever could. She kept her phone locked up tighter. Started deleting messages, I could tell. Her fingers moved fast, eyes scanning like she was cleaning something up. I wanted to ask what she was hiding. I wanted to say, "You're not as careful as you think you are." But I didn't. Instead, I asked her if she wanted to go away for the weekend, somewhere quiet. Just us. She looked surprised, said she'd have to check her workload. Said she might have to reschedule a check-in with a client. I said, "Make it work." Just like that. Not a request. Not a suggestion. A command. Her face shifted. She nodded slowly. She was trying to figure out if I was planning something. She was right. That night, I sat on the couch while she scrolled on her phone beside me. I leaned over suddenly and asked, "Do you think people can really forgive cheating?" She went stiff, didn't answer at first. Then she said, "I guess it depends on the situation." I asked, "What kind of situation makes it forgivable?" She paused again, too long, then mumbled something about emotions being complicated. I just nodded and turned back to the TV. I didn't need her answer. Her silence said enough. And I saw it in her eyes, for the first time. She wasn't sure if I was talking about someone else or about her. I wanted her guessing. I wanted her rehearsing lies before I even asked the questions. Because the more she rehearsed, the more obvious it would be when the real questions came. And they were coming. Just not tonight. Sunday morning, she made pancakes. She always made pancakes on days she wanted to feel normal, as if syrup and flour could cover the stench of everything rotting underneath. She hummed while she flipped them, too cheerful, like a woman trying to convince herself she still lived in the world she built on lies. I sat at the table and watched her, waiting for the moment to come to me. I wasn't going to force it. I didn't need to. When she sat down across from me and asked if we could go to her parents' place for dinner later, I saw my chance. I said sure. Then I looked at her straight in the eye and asked, "Have you ever thought about cheating on me?" She blinked, once, then smiled like I was joking. "What kind of question is that?" I didn't blink, didn't smile back. "Just curious," I said. She looked away, cut into her pancake, said, "No, of course not." Her voice trembled. I don't think she even realized it. I nodded, took a bite, didn't say anything else. She barely ate after that. Later that afternoon, I pulled up an old photo on my phone, one Lauren had sent me weeks ago. Alyssa and him, walking side by side out of the gym, her hand in his. I left my phone on the kitchen counter and walked into the other room. Didn't say a word. Just let it sit there, screen up, unlocked. When I came back 5 minutes later, the photo was gone. She locked the phone and set it exactly where it was, like nothing had happened. I looked at her. She looked at me. Neither of us said a word. She went to the bedroom and didn't come back out for hours. I sat in the living room and stared at the wall, wondering how long she thought this could go on. How long she thought silence could keep two people tethered together when one of them had already cut the rope. That night, she barely spoke to me, said she was tired, went to bed early. I waited until the lights were off, then walked in and sat on the edge of the bed. I said her name once. Quiet. She didn't respond. I said, "I know." Her breath caught. She didn't move, didn't sit up, Just lay there, frozen. I've known for a while, I said. Still nothing. The silence stretched, thick and wet, like the air right before a thunderstorm. Then finally, barely a whisper. How long? Long enough, I said. She rolled onto her back, stared at the ceiling. I could see the outline of her jaw trembling in the dim light. Who told you? Does it matter? More silence. Then a whisper. I didn't mean for it to happen. I stood up, walked to the door, turned off the light. Neither did I. And I left her in the dark. She didn't follow me when I left the bedroom. I thought maybe she would try to explain, make something up, cry in the hallway like a scene from a bad movie. But she didn't. She stayed in the dark, in that bed we bought together 3 years ago, under the covers that used to mean something. And that silence from her? It was louder than any confession. I sat on the couch until morning. Didn't turn on the TV. Didn't touch my phone. Just sat there with the same thought playing over and over in my head. She didn't even deny it. Not once. Around 6 a.m., I heard her in the kitchen. Soft footsteps, cupboard doors, the kettle on the stove. That casual rhythm of normal life, like she thought the world hadn't shifted overnight. I didn't move. Just waited. She walked into the living room holding a mug of coffee, one for me. Set it on the table like nothing had happened. I figured you didn't sleep, she said. I looked at her. Really looked. Her hair was tied back. No makeup. She looked tired, but not wrecked. She wasn't breaking down. She wasn't apologizing. She was just there. Present. Calm. I said, "You're not even going to cry?" She sat across from me and wrapped her fingers around her own mug like she needed something to hold. She shook her head slowly. I already did. Weeks ago. And that was it. That was the moment I knew we weren't in the same story anymore. She had grieved this already, whatever this used to be. She had cried and rationalized and buried it all long before I ever knew it was dead. I was catching up to a funeral I hadn't been invited to. She said, "I didn't do it because I stopped loving you. I did it because I didn't know how to feel like myself anymore. I don't know when I stopped being me in this house." I laughed. Not loud. Just a breath. Bitter. "So you found him and remembered how to feel?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I stood up and walked to the window, stared out at the empty street, the pale light stretching over the sidewalk. I wanted to say something that would cut, something that would make her feel the kind of loss I felt. But nothing came. She broke the silence again. I thought I'd feel more guilt. I did, at first. But the more I lied, the easier it got. And that scares me. I turned and looked at her, and she finally looked small. Not powerful. Not some woman who'd outplayed me. Just tired. Worn. A version of herself even she didn't recognize anymore. I didn't yell. I didn't throw things. I didn't ask for details. Because the answers wouldn't change anything. She cheated. She lied. And she lived in this house like she wasn't already gone. I walked past her, into the bedroom, packed a bag. When I walked back through the living room, she didn't stop me. She just said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Somewhere honest." And I left. I didn't go far. Just a friend's spare room. Colin, guy I used to work with before he moved into HVAC, offered it without asking questions. Just handed me the keys, pointed to the mini fridge, and said, "Bathroom's down the hall." That's all I needed. Somewhere that didn't smell like her shampoo. Somewhere the silence didn't echo with things I didn't want to remember. The first night I slept there, I didn't dream. I didn't cry either. I just passed out with my clothes still on and woke up sore from the lumpy mattress but thankful for the nothingness. No memory. No tension in the air. Just a blank ceiling and a room that didn't know anything about me. I checked my phone in the morning. No messages from her. Not even a "where are you?" I don't know if that made it better or worse. Probably both. I didn't want her apologies. I didn't want her tears. But the silence still stung. Back at the house, my toothbrush was still in the holder. My boots still by the door. She hadn't touched anything. I drove by once, didn't stop. Just slowed down at the curb like a stranger looking at someone else's life. The curtains were open. A light was on in the kitchen. She was still living there, still moving around in the shell of a marriage like it hadn't collapsed. And maybe that's what hit me hardest. She was fine, or pretending to be. And either way, it meant she'd already practiced for this. I stayed gone all week, texted my boss and told him I needed a few days. Said it was personal. He didn't press. Just told me to take care of myself. I didn't tell anyone else. Not yet. Not my parents. Not hers. I wasn't ready for the looks, the questions, the half-sympathetic faces asking if I was okay. I wasn't. And I didn't want to lie about that, too. Colin asked one night if I wanted to talk about it. I said no. We cracked a couple beers, sat in the garage, and listened to music that didn't mean anything. That helped. I kept thinking about all the little lies. Not just the big one. Not just him. But the small, daily ones. The way she smiled while saying she loved me. The way she touched my back while walking past me in the hallway. The way she curled into me at night and whispered goodnight like she meant it. All of that had been fake. Or maybe not fake, just hollow. A performance with no soul behind it. I didn't hate her yet. I wanted to. But I didn't. Mostly, I hated how easily she let me go. Like I was just another version of herself she'd outgrown. And what do you do when the person you'd planned everything with suddenly acts like you're just furniture they forgot to move out? You start over. You figure out who you are without them. And for the first time in years, you sleep in a bed that's yours, even if it's borrowed, and no one's lying beside you. I went back to the house on Thursday. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. I couldn't avoid it forever. My clothes were there. My paperwork. The things that still tied me to a version of myself that lived in denial. She wasn't home when I pulled into the driveway. Her car was gone. I didn't text. I didn't ask. I used my key, walked in, and stood there like a stranger. It smelled like lavender and floor cleaner. Too clean. Too still. Like she'd scrubbed the place down hoping to erase whatever she thought might be clinging to the air. Nothing had moved. My jacket still hung on the hook. My favorite mug was still on the drying rack. Our picture still sat on the mantel, the one from our trip to Maine, her leaning into me, laughing at something I can't remember now. I stared at that photo longer than I meant to. I wanted to smash it, but I didn't. I just turned it face down and kept walking. Packing felt like going through someone else's things. I opened drawers and saw pieces of a life that didn't belong to me anymore. My shirts still folded. Socks still matched. The drawer she kept her perfumes in, all lined up by color. For a second, I thought about what it would have felt like if none of this had happened. If I'd come home like any other day and she'd hugged me from behind and asked what I wanted for dinner. And the part that hurt worst was knowing I would have smiled. I would have answered. I would have believed her. She came home while I was still there. I heard the door, the pause, the footsteps. She didn't say anything right away. Just stood at the entrance to the bedroom and watched me zip up the duffel. "Are you staying gone?" she asked. I nodded. She stepped into the room slowly. No tears. No dramatics. Just tired eyes and a voice that sounded like it had already accepted whatever came next. "I haven't seen him since you left," she said. I didn't respond. I deleted everything. I told him it was over. I looked at her then, really looked, and for the first time in a long time, I saw someone who didn't know what came next. She wasn't smug. She wasn't ashamed. She was just lost. "I don't care what you told him," I said. "You didn't cheat because of him. You cheated because you were done with me and didn't have the guts to say it." Her shoulders dropped like the words had taken something out of her. "I was scared," she said. "So was I told her. And I didn't run." She stepped closer, reached for my hand. I stepped back. "Don't," I said. She froze, nodded once, didn't try again. I walked out without looking back, threw the bag into the truck, closed the door, and just sat there for a minute with my hands on the wheel. I didn't drive off right away. I looked at the house, at the porch we built together, at the plants she picked out, at the windows we washed last spring, laughing while the hose sprayed everywhere. I missed that life, but it never really existed. Only the version in my head did. The days that followed felt like breathing underwater, not drowning, not anymore. Just heavy, slow. Every morning, I woke up in Colin's guest room and had to remind myself that the world I used to live in wasn't real, that the woman I gave everything to wasn't mine, and maybe never really was, that everything I thought I was building was just a blueprint she never planned to finish. But the strange thing was, once I stopped trying to hold on to that version of my life, I felt lighter. Like grief was a coat I didn't realize I could take off. I didn't feel better, not in the way people mean when they say better, but I felt more awake, more myself. I didn't flinch every time my phone buzzed. I didn't keep replaying her words. I just existed. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. I started fixing things around Colin's place. Not because he asked, just because it gave my hands something to do. Leaky faucet, creaky hinge, loose cabinet door. Simple things. But they made me feel useful, present, real. You'd be surprised how grounding it is to fix something and know it'll stay fixed. One night, I stood outside by the trash bins, watching the sky turn purple. I thought about all the mornings I used to wake up early just to make Alyssa coffee before she had her calls. How I'd leave little notes in her bag. Stupid things like, "You got this," or "Love you more than bagels." I remembered how she used to smile at those. Or maybe just pretended to. I still don't know. But the part that stung wasn't that she stopped loving me. It was that I didn't notice when she did. That silence? It didn't start with him. It started in the space between two people who stopped reaching for each other. And I was just as guilty of letting that space grow. I went back to the shop Monday morning. First time in weeks. My guys didn't ask questions. Just handed me a schedule and a coffee. That's the thing about working with your hands. No one cares about your drama. They just want the job done. I like that. Felt honest. By Wednesday, I'd moved my things into a small month-to-month rental. Nothing special. Just a clean kitchen, a decent bed, and a living room with no ghosts. I unpacked slow, one drawer at a time. I threw away things that didn't feel like mine anymore. Old t-shirts, photos, a mug she gave me with a dumb pun on it. I didn't want reminders. I wanted room. Room to figure out who I was without her. Not the version she needed. Not the one who waited around to be cheated on. Just me. The man who still shows up. Who still fixes things. Who still believes in loyalty even after someone broke it. I didn't want her back. I wanted myself back. And I was starting to remember who that was. The message came in on a Thursday. Just a text. Simple. Empty. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long time. Not because I didn't know how to respond, but because of how little it made me feel. No anger. No surge of emotion. Just stillness. The kind that tells you the fire's gone out completely. Not burned down. Not smoldering. Just cold ash. I didn't answer right away. I went for a walk instead. No destination. Just sneakers on pavement and the sound of wind passing through branches that didn't care about what I'd been through. It felt good. Clean. I stopped by a bakery, grabbed coffee, nodded at strangers. Normal things. Human things. Things I'd stopped doing back when I was living inside the ruins of a life I didn't realize had already collapsed. When I finally texted back, I only wrote one line. There's nothing left to say. She didn't reply. And that told me more than anything she could have sent. No fight. No, please. No attempt to explain again. Just silence. The same kind she gave me while she lied to my face, while she slipped out the door in clothes I paid for to be touched by someone who wasn't me. I deleted the thread. I didn't feel better, but I felt clean. Final. That night, I took everything that reminded me of her and tossed it in a box. Not angrily, just methodically. Photos, shirts she left behind, notes, her old coffee mug, the dog-eared book she never finished. I didn't burn it. I didn't smash it. I just dropped it off at a donation center and drove away. You can't erase someone from your life, not completely, but you can make peace with their absence. You can stop checking shadows for signs of them. You can learn to live in the space they left without trying to fill it with noise. I'm not the same man I was a few months ago. Back then, I thought love was something that stayed if you worked hard enough. That if you gave everything, you'd get the same in return. That faithfulness meant safety, security, some kind of invisible armor. But now I know better. Love can lie. It can smile at you while hiding its teeth. And sometimes, the strongest thing you'll ever do is not chase the person who broke you, but become someone they don't recognize anymore. Someone freer. Someone lighter. Someone finally okay with walking forward without looking back.